So what is wrong with my two Bahamian salt and pepper shakers?
Are you saying that because they're dark skinned and from a darker African tribe that I can't be proud of this? We now have to take this away. This is now racist. I mean, shouldn't we be proud of our African tribes, dark, light, whatever the complexion? What's wrong with my shakers?
I'll tell you what's wrong with them being black. It means they'll never be GC president.
Wow.
Hey.
Remember all the times that they doubted me, and I knew that I would last, and they proud of me. I was down bad, needed you to help
This
me.
is the Black Adventist Network.
With our stories.
In our voices.
With our solution. The world is talking about it. They're talking about the racism, the injustice, the oppression. They're talking about, if a white individual goes out and get a loan to get a home, they get a 3% interest rate. But if I go out, same income, same credit score, my interest rate is 5%. They're talking about the police brutality. They're talking about the institutionalized racism. They're talking about all these things, but why can't we talk about these things that are happening in the church? These same things.
Mm.
Yeah, you do find there is a cultural revolution going on. The removal of these symbols that really speak to racism and bigotry in this country. We see people toppling down statues and calling for the removal of Confederate flags and changing the names of military bases in schools. But you're right. When are we going to start talking about the cultural shift or certain things that we need to address in the church?
So here's the way I look at it. So when you look and see what's happening in the world, there was a unification of voices. People got to the point where they said, look, I am just tired of seeing this now. And to see what happened, you have individuals from different races, backgrounds, creed coming together, marching in solidarity, saying, look, we need to see change occur. What's happening in our church? You hear a lot of folks in our Black conferences say, hey, there's this division between both conferences, but you don't have a unified voice saying, hey, there should be a change. So will we have a unified voice? That's a question that I would have, because I feel only when there's a unified voice does change occur.
Yeah, but how can you reconcile the past with what's current today? Do we desegregate our churches? I mean, we have a lot of segregation within our church. So what are we to do now? Should we no longer have those? I'm not understanding, where do we go from here? Do we make it, do we try to focus on getting a Black president now? What's the big change that we're looking for? We don't have, within the church itself, we don't have statues. We don't have, these symbolism of racism, or do we? I mean, you guys tell me what's.
Let me speak to that, please.
Yeah.
A symbolism of racism within the church. The church is 160 years old. Please, somebody tell me the name of one of the Black presidents. I'm not asking for two. I'm asking for one Black president. The name of one. You can't, can you? So that tells me there's an issue there. I'll answer Dr. Antoinette's question. Heaven is not going to be segregated. It's not. So we must desegregate our church. The Lord is not pleased with this. It's not a matter of should we or it is, or when. We should do it now. And I know someone's going to say, well, there's a lot of things that go along with it, a lot of pieces. There's a reason why. Yes, there was, and there probably is still a reason why, but we need to find out what that is. We need to fix it. We must.
Yeah, I see the cultural revolution going on in the world to redress, symbols of racism and practices of racism and discrimination. And I look at our church and I see that, yes, we do have a Black North American Division president, and we had one before. But when are we going to have a Black General Conference president? That is the question. We've never had anyone, a person of color as president, or even a female as president. And for some people, just to even say that, it's just like, extreme, because we've just accepted the practices. But it's time for us to reconsider that.
Why?
Who does the
Why?
voting though?
Well, may I ask a question? Excuse me, Dr. Anthony, I apologize. I'm going to jump in for 1 second. Why? Why do we have to have a president of color? Why? Why does it matter?
Well, most, am I wrong? But most Seventh-day Adventists are people of color. When you go overseas, are they not people of color? So we need leadership to be inclusive. I don't even know why I even need to say that.
My question, I mean, I understand both points, right? But who does the voting here? If we have these folks in leadership, okay, if you're saying that majority of Seventh-day Adventists overseas are people of color, though those who have those delegates with voting privileges are the ones that are voting, and they're voting white folks in as president and vice president. Why are we, people of color, not voting our own in this highest office? Answer that question. Why?
How many Black people have ran for president in the United States? Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, or Barack Obama? And there's probably 5 out of 500 white individuals. The last time I was at a constituency meeting, I didn't have any people of color to vote for.
Right. Say that.
I didn't have to vote for. If I'm being honest, even the people that I did have, excuse me, I didn't know anything about them. I just came there, saw some names on a sheet of paper. I didn't know who, what, where, when they came from. It was basically just throwing dice. Pick a random name.
Right.
So then that partially goes back to the process then. Do we know what the process entails in terms of picking a president?
Right.
And that not only happens at the General Conference level, it happens even, at our North American division and even our church conference level. A lot of the times, we don't put ourselves in positions where we understand the process. And so I think getting the knowledge out there in terms of what the process looks like helps. Encouraging our folks that, you have the capabilities. I've watched you in church. I've seen how you navigate yourself. I feel like you should take up an office position in the General Conference. There's an opening there, or there's an opportunity there that you could potentially lead, and you've had some great ideas in church. I think you should give it some thought, give it some prayer, and then go from there. I don't necessarily know that we encourage each other enough, that we are capable enough of being General Conference presidents, and so we run into that issue. What I am ultimately looking for from my General Conference is support. I want my General Conference to say to me, hey, folks of color, we recognize what's going on. We see what's going on out there. We understand even structurally how things are situated within our church, and we need to address that. So let's come to the table. Let's have some conversations. Let's dig deep. Let's see how we can make some adjustments there and make this a more unified church. Because it may seem unified the way it's structured now, but it's really not.
Well,
So,
okay, with all the things that are happening, the conversations are being had. It's the hope that conversations are being had in the General Conference, discussions on race relations, how we can do things better, how we can make things better. Folks are realizing there are these implicit biases, right? That leaders may have, or our white friends may have, where they're not saying, oh, this person, this Black person or this person of color is not good for this job or isn't qualified. But implicit bias means they quickly pass over those people because of the biases that they have, but they don't intentionally say, I'm going to pass over them. But it's just something that's normally done. It's historic. It's something that's innate for them or inherent, where people of color are typically passed over. So now that this is being realized, right, in conversations, this is being told, like, we're typically being passed over when we're talented, when we're qualified, when we're educated, you're passing us over. Now that folks are realizing that, maybe there'll be a turnover within the General Conference to recognize that we need to focus on these people of color who are also qualified, and really take a serious look of voting them into these offices, and not just look at the race that you think may be, dominant. This race is, stop putting one race superior over another and look at the individual. That's what needs to be done.
Yeah, because you find that the process of which General Conference presidents are selected, we as people of color are at a disadvantage. And so I think in this moment, we need to be saying, we need to change the process, because that's what people will come back with and say, okay, well, they're selecting for, let's say division presidents to be, the General Conference president. We've got one right now, right? And the first one we had was really by default. If you read Calvin Rock's book, Protest the Progress, it really outlines that. And so I think what we need to be thinking about as Black Seventh-day Adventists, we really need to be thinking about what we want in this moment. Because in going back to Dr. Rock's book, he talked about how united Black Adventists were during the Civil Rights Movement, and came to the table asking for things in our church. So back then they asked for Black unions. Yes, they never got it, but we can see how they fought for it. What are we doing now as Black Adventists in this moment to ask for anything? We need a certain level of leadership, because as we were saying, if in the world, they have gotten to a point where they're saying, okay, what do we need to do to redress symbols of racism and to be more inclusive? And we see it happening from changing the names of military bases to changing Aunt Jemima's face on pancake mixes and her salt shaker. But it's time for, in the church as Blacks, that we now say, okay, well, what is it that we're asking for in the church?
So what is wrong with my two Bahamians salt and pepper shakers? Are you saying that because they're dark skinned and from a darker African tribe, that I can't be proud of this? We now have to take this away. This is now racist. I mean, shouldn't we be proud of our African tribes, dark, light, whatever the complexion? What's wrong with my shakers?
I'll tell you what's wrong with them being Black. It means they'll never be GC president.
Wow.
Hey.
So I you know what? If I may, between the four of us, there's a lot of education, a lot. Very well-educated, smart individuals. So I want to ask you three this question. Can any of you rattle off the current process for voting? For voting for your local conference? For voting to the North American Conference? and from voting to the GC conference, what is that process? Where do they get these people from? How are they vetted? How do they get to the people? How do you get on the ballot to be voted? How? Because mostly I know a lot of these guys are pastors, but I don't even know how to get on the ballot. United States President. If Professor Truth wanted to run for office, I could put my name on the ballot. No one's going to stop me. No one's going to say you can't do that. And there is a clear way to do that.
Yeah.
How do I want to be GC president. I want to be GC president. How do you don't have to vote for me, but I want to run. I want to at least say I did my due diligence. Somebody tell me how to do that.
Do you have to be a pastor? I've always thought you had to be a pastor. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't remember that being in the Bible, so why is that a restriction for us here now? Shouldn't you be a good and faithful follower of Christ, of the Seventh-day Adventist faith? Why do you have to be a pastor?
So you could be 4th generation, 5th generation Adventist, tithe paying, attend Sabbath school, never miss a day.
There are some pastors out there, I can rattle off Daniel and Revelations better than they can. There's some pastors out there that have done some stuff and got let go. I've never done that stuff and get let go, so why is their qualifications beating mine? I want to be GC president. I don't know how to be GC president.
Oh.
The process needs to change. There's something that I'm going to say it.
So the process needs to be made clearer.
Going on here.
What's going on?
There is something nefarious going on here where the common man doesn't know the process for the voting in the church. That's some bamboozle behind the curtain type stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you can always go to the General Conference session that happens every 5 years, and when they vote for the next president, you are invited to go to some meeting, not all, but
to watch. We can't do anything. Our hands are tied. We can't vote, but we can watch.
Yeah.
All they're doing in there is announcing who won. They're announcing who won. Hey, just to let you guys know, here's who won. Oh, really? What happened? What happened behind the curtain? We're just telling you. We're just telling you. That's all we're there for. We're just telling you.
And so you find that the process continually leaves people of color out because we're not at the table in the first place to be nominated, to vote, so and to even be aware of the process.
Right.
Because you are absolutely right. You can speak to people who've been in the church for generations upon generations, and they cannot rattle off the process. It's time for us to ask for more in the name of the Lord.
Needed you to help me. Had to get it on my own, every little thing. Chasing bands in my pockets real healthy. I was dreaming, now I wanna get the real thing.